is already the victor. This whole thing is designed to fall apart. It can't last because the planetary shift we're going through is a change in frequency. You have to be a frequency match in order to participate in something. You know, if you want to match the falling down, dying energies of the planet and the global elite who are so arrogant and greedy that they have no way of knowing. I mean, they may think they're aware of the higher consciousness that's occurring, but I really don't think they are. I think they've lost track. So why should we stay focused on that when we can move as quickly as possible out of that with our feelings and our thoughts and our actions as well? And I think that's extremely important for people to get how much personal power they have, how really the people do have the power.
Now we're going to take some phone calls if you'd like to get on the conversation tonight at 503-288-4442 or 503-288-4448. The interesting thing about 2012, my personal fascination with it, is solar flares and their potential effect on human consciousness and, of course, earthquakes. I'm looking at the trends. I've been looking at the trends for the last couple of years with massive solar flares, coronal mass ejections, CMEs. We just had one of the biggest one in 3 years a couple weeks ago that coincided with the Baja earthquake down in Mexico and the earthquake in California. And it doesn't mean that HAARP's not involved. I'm not saying that those things aren't going on, but there definitely seems to be this correlation, this pattern that I'm seeing with earthquakes, with natural disasters, but also riots. And if you go back historically, I don't know if you've looked at this, with massive solar flares, you see major shifts in the direction of a culture or a society. The late 60s, for example, correlated with massive solar flare. Now, I know this is something that a lot of astrologers haven't heard of, but it's something that's just been fascinating me for a long time.
Well, the earth sciences are very significant right now because we just finished solar cycle 23. And
we're going into 24.
Yeah, and we're in 24. And in 23, the scientists, their equipment was outclassing these. I mean, these solar flares were outclassing the equipment. They weren't being able to predict suddenly when they would occur so accurately. And now we're in solar cycle 24, which it's not only the Mayans and their knowledge of these cycles, but science knows this is going to be a 50% stronger time for solar flares. And when those sunspots get so hot that they cause a flare and then they cause a coronal mass ejection, the Earth puts up her shield, a magnetic shield, to protect her. But what it does is it shifts the tides, it shifts the weather, and it also shifts human behavior. So we're so tied into this larger picture. That's why I want people to see there are controls that control the controllers. And when the GPS gets knocked out, it's, by a large solar flare coming up, and we know this will happen. The satellites, it'll happen to everyone. It won't just happen to the general public.
And for those that think that we're talking about the end of the world or something fearful here, would that be the worst case scenario if something like that were to happen to humanity at this time, when we seem to be on this path towards a potential big war in the future? Would that really be the worst thing in the world if we had that?
No, it wouldn't, because people, everything changes when you have to go into survival mode, and a lot of people in the world are in survival mode right now, and some people will just fall deeper and deeper into that, but a lot of people, like what happened in Haiti, for instance, I believe that all of those people that ascended early or ascended with that event did so in a group, maybe not consciously, but in order to create more compassion on the planet. So if the GPS gets knocked out, what do people do every day with their time? They serve and they celebrate, and they get to make a choice.
They have to meet their neighbors.
Yeah, they get to meet a choice. Do they
my God, that would be horrible, folks.
Do they circle the drain, or do they jump up and become the hero that they are? The hero that I have great faith in the American people. I've seen some amazing things.
Before we go to that phone call, one more thing to point out, when you were talking about shields up, when we get hit with those CMEs, and that fluctuation of the magnetic field, they've done studies on solar storms causing geomagnetic storms on the planet, and different hurricanes, potentially earth changes, things like that. But they've done studies on geomagnetic storms being linked to people in deeper dream states, more lucid type of dreams and whatnot. And I can tell you, a lot of people are feeling the same thing, Dee Dee, that the energy especially last year, it's different. There's something different in the air. Now there's that feeling of, oh my God, what's going to happen next? When's the economy going to crash? When's World War III going to start? When's martial law going to be declared? There's also this other anticipation, but there's this very big question mark lingering in a lot of our minds.
Yeah.
What is the next thing that's going to happen to our species? But we're all kind of feeling this new energy, Dee Dee, that something's coming.
Well,
and it seems like the mass media, they're working in tandem with one another to create the fearful. The end of the world is coming.
Exactly.
2012 is the end of the world. Nostradamus predicted all this stuff's coming. The end is here, so give up. And I think we want to look at the opposite of the give up option.
Yeah, we are electric beings, you know, acupuncture, we've seen pictures of the electricity running through the body.
Yeah.
And so if we are electric beings in this delicate shielding of flesh that somehow we have managed in our great creativity to form around ourselves as beings, we're going to be affected by these things. And our dreams, people's dreams are receiving of information for them to interpret. Really, the amount of change on all levels that we're seeing is going to go faster and faster and faster as we move forward into this.
Synchronicity as well. It just seems to be increasing every day.
Well, if people will allow for those greater cycles to unfold, like, you know, the disaster movie 2012. Somebody had to make a disaster movie about 2012.
Of course. Probably won't be the last.
No, and the thing is that we've found out from people that work deep in the time travel institutes in the government that time is speeding so fast that we've already bypassed an extinction-like event. We won't have that extinction-like event. So what are we going to have instead? We're going to have basically a separation in consciousness between the grosser third-dimensional energies and the higher fourth and fifth dimensional energies. And a lot of people on Earth already live in that reality. And they're disturbed by what's going on and affected by it, certainly. But I think it's a very exciting time to be alive, and I think a lot of us came here on purpose.
No reason we should be bored. I agree with that. Now, I know there's a phone call that's been waiting patiently. We're going to get to as many phone calls as we can tonight. Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, this is Peter. Hi, Alex.
Hi, Peter.
Yeah, I think we three are pretty well on the same wavelength. I wrote some notes before your program began, and they fit in perfectly. I'd like to read them. Okay?
Go ahead, Peter.
Yeah. Some people think that they know that there's a plan to use money to run the world and to try to bring liberty to the world. Others think the plan is to use money to enslave the world. I say the fundamental reality is that both plans exist. Earthlings have the first plan. The History Channel has just exposed ETs who have the second plan. However, there is a third plan, but I don't think we'll get into that today, but whatever. Anyway, I'd like to explain why the Liberty Plan will fail. It takes about 4 fairly long sentences like this. Ultimately, the socialist and communist and Chinese half of the world will have more than half of the world's money, or land, or gold, silver, and the platinum-type assets. So when you empower money to procure liberty, it might look like it is working for a number of years, but then the true global momentum will set in, which will procure anything but liberty. The History Channel has nearly succeeded just the other day in fully revealing that Earthlings are always prone to being run by extraterrestrials, or at least to being manipulated on a grand scale by them. The most undesirable ETs will always be empowered when Earthlings choose to empower the love of money over everything else. That fits in pretty well with your discussion, don't you think?
Thank you very much, Peter. And one thing I want to add to that, Dee Dee, is money. It's a man-made construct.
Sure.
And so many people think what they're doing, the New World Order, the global elite, it's just for money. But they are printing the money out of thin air. They run the central banks. It's the system they've got us locked onto. So it's really using money, capitalizing on energy, since we're associating. It's your comments?
Well, yeah, that's right. Money is just energy, and gosh, that's a real tough one because, boy.
There was a lot of stuff there, but maybe perhaps later on we'll get into the mainstream media coverage.